back off and come back.
Oh, okay.
So we'll just say Shapiro is the last person.
I'm very, very last.
Was Rob just disappointed that I wasn't here and he decided to leave?
Yes.
He went to get Archie to help him get his video straight.
Oh, okay.
Won't be long. Peter will have the joy of grandchildren.
No rush there.
That's what he's saying.
You say
now.
that, but once it happens, you're
yep.
just, you can't help it. You're just so in love.
Well, I don't know.
He's saying that
Yeah.
now. Well, everybody says that.
Everybody says that, but I'm telling you, once it happens, it is, you know,
They are
I
in
think we love
charge.
them more than our children. I'm
I
not
was-
sure
I
what
was married-
happens.
I was married for 6 years before I had a child.
Yeah.
I don't know
Certain
if that,
reasons for that, but you know, it's neither here nor there. Yeah, it's about around, you know, it was like 3 years or so when we started thinking that, maybe we ought to have kids. So we didn't even think about it for 3 years.
How many
It's
years
like an
after your kids were
afterthought.
born did it take before you started to like them, Peter?
He can't answer that. He's
Good
like,
question. You know, there's this moment where they suddenly, like, they're no longer like just objects to be cared for, and they're actually like humans that you can
they're
Yeah.
fun.
try
So
to
3 or
raise.
4 years before you liked your kids?
So it's 3 or 4 years, yeah, is when you I mean, I liked them beforehand, but they were a lot more work and less fun, you know.
Yeah.
okay, so Rob is back, and if he can't get his video, we'll just go with the box.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
There he is.
Thank you, Archie.
I'm on my phone.
Oh, your phone. Okay. All right. Let's Mr. Young, can you go ahead and start the video, please? Well, the recording. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today's date is October the 21st, 2021. We are convening and broadcasting this public hearing by video conferencing. My name is Anthony Hood, and I'm joined by Vice Chair Miller and Commissioner May. We're also joined by Ms. Sharon Shellen, our Secretary in Office of Zoning, and Mr. Paul Young, who will be handling all of our virtual operations. Also, we have Mr. Jacob Riddy, our counsel. I will ask all others to introduce themselves at the appropriate time. The subject of tonight's case is Zoning Commission Case Number 08-34L. This is a second stage plan unit development application for the Capitol Crossing Center block. The virtual public hearing notice is available on the Office of Zoning's website. This proceeding is being recorded by a court reporter, and the platforms used are Webcast Live, WebEx, and YouTube Live. The video will be available on the Office of Zoning's website after the hearing. All persons planning to testify should have signed up in advance and will be called by name at the appropriate time. At the time of sign up, all participants will complete the oath or affirmation required by Subtitle Z408.7. Accordingly, all those listening on WebEx or by phone will be muted during the hearing, and only those who have signed up to participate or testify will be unmuted at the appropriate time. When called, please state your name and home address before providing your testimony. When you are finished speaking, please mute your audio. If you experience difficulty accessing WebEx or with your telephone call-in or have not signed up, then please call our OZ hotline number 202-727-5471. If you wish to file written testimony or additional supporting documents during the hearing, then please be prepared to describe and discuss it at the time of your testimony. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with provisions of 11Z DCMR Chapter 4 as follows. Preliminary matters, the applicant's case. In this case, the applicant has up to 60 minutes. I believe we have read the record sufficiently. Just hit the highlights. I would ask Office of Planning and the applicant to just hit the highlights, and I think they can do that within 10 minutes for the public. Then we will have report of the Office of Planning and District Department of Transportation, and that goes also to DDOT as well. Report of the office, a report of other government agencies, report of the ANC. I think we have two in this case who have submitted documents. Testimony of organizations, 5 minutes, and individuals, 3 minutes. And we will hear in the following order from those who are in support, opposition, and undeclared. Then we have rebuttal and closing by the applicant. Again, the Office of Zoning hotline number is 202-727-5471 for any concerns during these proceedings. At this time, the commission will consider any preliminary matters. Does the staff have any preliminary matters?
Just the usual, proffered expert witnesses, Thomas Wong in architecture, Exhibit 13C. Jamie Milanovich, previously accepted. I do not see Shane Detman. I don't think he's going to be participating this evening. I think it's just those two. Thomas Wong has not been accepted before, if the commission would consider him.
Okay, colleagues, we have a request from Mr. Wong to be considered as a, I believe, an expert in architecture.
Mr. Wong is a very accomplished architect, and I would certainly consider him an expert.
Hey, we got to give him gold status. All right, so no objections unless Vice Chair Miller has any objections. Okay, no objections. We will give him expert status, and we'll put very expert status. I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay. Ms. Scheiker from Holland and Knight will be the representative for the applicant. As I said, Ms. Steingasser from OP will be the representative for OP this evening. And we will have Emma Blondin from DDOT for their representative. And the 1A and C, we have Mark Eckenweiler. And I'm not sure that we have anybody from 2C, but I will check in the meantime once you get to that point.
Okay, thank you. Let's bring Ms. Scheiker up and her team, and they can get started. And Ms. Scheiker, I think this can be done in about 10 minutes.
Yes, good evening, Chairman Hood, members of the commission. I'm Christy Scheiker representing the applicant tonight, and we will go through our presentation in 10 minutes or less, hitting the highlights. And I have a couple of members that I'd like to bring up. Mr. Wong, has he been brought up?
I don't see him on here.
And then I'm going to go ahead and bring up Jamie Milanovich. I'm not going to have her testify in order to keep this in less than 10 minutes. But I'm wondering, I definitely need, he says he's listed as WebEx1 INEAD. If that helps you, Mr. Young.
Yep.
Thank
And
you.
Ms. Milanovich, I can only unmute her for some reason. I can't make her a panelist.
Okay, that's fine because she'll only be here for questions. Great, I have seen Mr. Wong has joined us. Wonderful, so Chairman Hood, members of the commission, whenever you're ready, I'm happy to go ahead and start. We do have a PowerPoint that I think will be helpful. So Mr. Young, if you could please bring that up. I sent you a compiled set yesterday. Thank you. So we are pleased to be here to be presenting the last two buildings for second stage PUD approval in the Capitol Crossing development. If you'll go to the first slide, please. When we came before you in 2011, this is what we showed you. This is what the freeway condition looked like. Next slide, please. Continue to the next slide, please. We envisioned 3 new city blocks. And I'm going to point out all of the slides going from here on out will have north on the left because of the length of the site. So you do have Mass Avenue on the left, the north block, the extension of G Street, the center block, the extension of F Street, and the south block, and then E Street, going from north to south, left to right. Next block, next slide, please. This is the site plan that was approved originally in 2011. All of these buildings have come forward for second stage PUDs, except for the 2 buildings in the center block, which are the residential building and the commercial building. That commercial building was just a couple of years ago changed from office to either office, hotel, or educational. We are proposing it as a hotel building. And I have all the zoning commission orders. I know there had been some questions about that, but we can go on to the next slide, please. This is my favorite slide because this is where we are just a few months ago. You can see that the entirety of the platform has been constructed. The north block of the office tower with the pedestrian way bisecting it is there. You see G Street. You see the Holy Rosary Church facilities, including their courtyard. In the south block, you see the relocated synagogue building. And in fact, that is under construction as well. The south building, the office building, is actually in for building permit. So it should be under construction and not too long. And so we are here for these final two buildings. Next slide, please. The arrows just remind you where the parking and loading are accessed from. All of the parking loading was approved as the consolidated PUD. It's been constructed. It is there. The loading is accessed from a single point on E Street with the blue arrow. The green arrows show the location of the parking entrances. Next slide, please. So as I noted, we're asking for second stage approval of the residential building, which fronts on G Street, as well as the hotel building, which fronts on 2nd and F Street. This is a second stage PUD. The amenities, the benefits, the comp plan compliance, and the zoning regulation compliance were all determined as part of the first stage PUD, and none of those are changing. Most of the amenities have already been delivered, and I'll note that there are one big amenity that comes with this phase, which is 50 affordable housing units in the residential building. Next slide, please. Again, second stage approval, requesting a special exception as part of that for a penthouse habitable space restaurant on top of the hotel building. We're pleased to have OP support. I only want to point out two things on our support. DDOT included two conditions. The first condition we agreed to. The second condition, we've been working with DDOT and we have come up with agreed upon language, which is on the penultimate slide in our PowerPoint. And we understand that DDOT will testify tonight that they agreed to that revised, just slightly revised language. Similarly, ANC 6C did have a condition that we would not have amplification on the roof of the hotel restaurant, and we have agreed to that condition as well. Next slide. And with that, I will pass it on to Mr. Wong to walk through the design of the buildings. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Thomas Wong, design partner with NEN Architects based in New York City. And we're happy and pleased to present to you the design of the center block here at Capitol Crossing. What you see on the screen now is the site plan showing the residential building at 12 stories on the left. The hotels on the right, also 12 stories, and both of those sit atop a common 2-story podium. I should note that Holy Rosary Church, which is in the bottom right of this block, has already constructed their annex, including the rectory and a 1-story terrace podium. And that's what you see there listed as the Holy Rosary Church Terrace. Go to the next, please. This gives you a summary of the program here. The orange is the 2-story podium. You can see the components in the areas there of retail, hotel, and residential space. Those are mostly amenities. The yellow is the hotel at 221 keys. The blue is the residential tower at 166 units in total, 50 of which are affordable. Next, please. This is the ground floor plan that shows you the common podium. So the yellow space is all the hotel lobby and amenities with an entry on F Street as well as on G Street. Retail really anchors the corner to activate the street corners and the entire frontages of F and G, as well as wrapping around to 2nd Street. Go to the next, please. You will see the 2nd floor, which contains many of the hotel amenities, including some meeting area that has access to an outdoor terrace on the bottom of this plan, and a residential amenity accessed via the private elevators for the residential lobby. If you go to the next, you'll see a typical floor plan showing the residential unit array, a mix of studio 1 and 2 bedrooms on the left, and the hotel rooms, including suites in the corners of the hotel building on the right. Next, please. At the roof, we are planning compliant setbacks and some occupiable roof areas. The residential building will have some enclosed amenity space that you see in the light blue that is in front of a mechanical penthouse. There's also an outdoor area for those residents, including a small pool and a covered shaded terrace. On the right, you see a planned hotel restaurant that has some outdoor seating accompanying it, facing to the south of the block, so capturing the views to the Washington Monument and the Capitol, and its corresponding support space in the corner, top left corner, and mechanical space in gray. Intentionally, we have put the mechanical space back to back so that those two things are really shielding the residents from the hotel use. If you go to the next, please. On the roof of the hotel, you'll see we have a planted roof. We are still working through some of the exhaust facilities and the smoke exhaust for the atrium there, so there might be some mechanical penetrations there. You see on the left side also a planted roof on the residential building. That includes some solar photovoltaic array. That sets off about 1.5% of the energy use of the entire development, or this center block development. Next, please. To describe a little bit of the character, you see some renderings here. This is from the North Block passageway looking south. The major three-story space there is the G Street entry into the hotel lobby. You see the residential lobby immediately to the left of that, and the residential building sitting above it. If you go to the next, this shows you a little bit more of the entire building, of the residential building, which has an inflected massing to sort of acknowledge the axis of the North Block passageway. And that residential building is sort of a floating mass and element over that two-story podium. You go to the next. Here's the hotel as seen from F Street. Its major entry is there at that portal, which is a double height space. And the hotel has this articulated bronze surround around each individual hotel room. This really is trying to establish the module of the hotel room. And that is, again, a floating kind of volume that sits over the combined podium space. In the next, you will see a thing that we've been developing with DDOT, which is a modified lay-by condition on F Street to accommodate guest arrival and drop-off on F Street, and a canopy that extends out to the edge of the curb. Next, please. Here, a view from the corner of 3rd Street and F with the hotel building behind the Holy Rosary Church. Again, the materiality of the hotel set to provide a little bit of contrast as a background element to the church. Next, please. And then a view of the corner of 2nd Street and F, showing you the hotel and its ground floor restaurant. Now, if you go to the next, please, we have devised the 2nd Street elevation of both the hotel and residential to have retail that wraps around the corner. The frontage of 2nd Street, however, is partially on the exit ramp of 395. And what we have included in the center area is a slightly more solid portion where that exit ramp occurs. This will provide an emergency exit. So an exit stair will have a door here. The upper part of that is open so that the 2nd floor of the hotel amenity has a view out here, and there's some activity. You can see on the left some of the articulation that we're including, which is made out of polished concrete in this solid area. If you go to the next, please. Here, just two overall views, the residential building on the left. Again, there's polished concrete as the solid material, as well as an acid etched glass panel on the right that provides some of the pattern and material. The bronze cladding of the hotel on the right is complemented by the same polished concrete at the podium. Next, please. The residential building is going to be a LEED Gold building, and the hotel will be LEED Platinum. But here you see the overall complex of the center block with both buildings in their combined podium.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. If we go to the last, slide 28, Mr. Young, you'll see the revised condition that I mentioned and that DDOT plans to testify to, that we've agreed to this on the performance monitoring plan. And with that, we would be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you so much.
Okay, I want to thank you for your presentation, Mr. Wong and Ms. Shiker. We really appreciate you condensing. I think the record was pretty straightforward, but I think we thought it would be better advised if we ask our questions. So what I'll do is ask Commissioner May, you have any questions or comments? Commissioner May?
I do, yes. But I'll try to be quick. So first of all, Mr. Wong, it's a pleasure to see you again. It's been quite a few years since we worked together on a project that unfortunately was never built. But that was a good experience, and certainly your understanding of Washington, even though you're a New York architect, has shown through. So I think this is an extremely well-designed building. And I'm not just saying that because I know you, because I've given hell to many architects in this forum who I know very well. But no, this is really very well done. It fits into the specific context. It's not just another glass box. They are buildings with some heft to them, but they also, as I said, fit well in that context, which is an interesting mix of historic structures like the church, mid-70s brick clad office buildings, the neoclassical Georgetown University campus. Neoclassical is not the right word, but it's, modernist. It's all Hartman Cox, right? It's all their work, which is all very fine. And it just, I think it all fits in extremely well. I would also comment on how adroitly the rooftop space has been handled, and the mechanical space is remarkably small, so that the amenity space, the bar and restaurant space, really take advantage of that space. And that's exactly what we had hoped for, I think, in changing the height restriction to allow occupiable penthouse space, and then the zoning regulations that went along with it. So I think you've done a great job managing that. I also appreciate the treatment of the height, and that, when the penthouses didn't have to be 20 feet tall, you didn't make them 20 feet tall, right? You just use what you need to. And I think that's, very sensitively done, because we don't really want to see penthouses. And 20-foot ones are more visible than 14-foot ones. So now, Ms. Schecker, can you remind me where the project is able to get the 130-foot height from? Is that because it's all technically off of Mass Avenue? Is that what it is? It's a single property off Mass Ave. It's 160 feet wide, and that gives you your minimum 110, because the side streets don't right up that tall.
Yeah, actually, so each block is an individual single record lot and single building. So for the center block, we're pulling our height from 3rd Street.
Oh, so it is.
So we are a single building with the Holy Rosary Church, and there is, as approved as part of the first stage PUD, was a building connection that went all the way through, and I think it's actually demonstrated on one of the early pages of our plans. The measuring point is from F Street, but the street that we're using for the right-of-way width is 3rd Street. And
3rd is 110 feet.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I knew there was something like that, but I couldn't remember where you were pulling the height from. So I do actually have a an architectural question, which has to do with the precast that's used on the apartment building. It's very white, and that's a concern that comes up frequently for us because very white buildings tend to get dirty faster, and if they're not designed well, you get streaking and staining and things like that. So I'm wondering if you could speak to that a little bit, either what your experience has been or how you're able to detail it so that we don't see that. It's the combination of very white buildings and, you know, clean modern detailing that sometimes cause trouble, as opposed to more traditional designs where, you know, the detailed treatment of the surfaces, the accumulation of dirt can actually enhance the reading of the facade. So
Sure.
how's this going to work?
Sure, happy to talk about that, Commissioner May. So we're planning on using a polished precast concrete so that the aggregate actually shows through. We also are hoping to do a rain screen so that we can avoid the use of sealants, which are largely the proponents that gather the dirt and then streak off. As well as detail it in a way to create, you know, adequate runoff, drip edges, et cetera, to avoid that kind of condition. There are plenty of examples of precast buildings throughout, you know, Washington and its environs. So I think we can adequately detail it and give it a longevity that is going to avoid that. You know, I think we have to get final samples with regards to the actual aggregate and the amount that it's visible. You know, the whiteness, I think, is something that needs to be refined as we move forward into the subsequent phases.
All right, well, I think you're probably aware that there are plenty of examples of light colored buildings in Washington, and some of them are good and some of them are not. So it's the good ones, I think, that you want to be paying attention to.
Understood.
Yeah. Okay. I'm all right. I'll pretend I'm Peter Shapiro for a minute. First of all, it's really great that you know, we're starting this discussion with gold and platinum buildings, because very often it's, you know, people start off at silver and we're like urging them to go for gold. And the mere fact that we're starting at gold and platinum, I think, is an accomplishment. I am just a little bit confused about the solar component, and is it solar ready, or is it actual solar panels that you're planning?
There are actual solar panels on the residential building.
Okay.
The hotel building, because of the exhaust requirements that still have to be fully ironed out in terms of the smoke exhaust for the atrium, as well as the kitchen exhaust from that rooftop restaurant, I think are things that we need to understand better. The hotel will be solar ready. So if and when we come to that point, we can refine whether or not solar panels can occur there.
Okay.
And that was our commitment, was to a 2,000 square feet on the residential building, which
Right.
would generate to obviously energy, you know, assisting with the energy offset of energy usage for both buildings. And then we committed to DOE that we would make that hotel building solar ready if in the future it would be able to work out with the mechanical shafts.
Right. Okay. Well, in my review of the materials, I clearly got them muddled, so I appreciate your clarifying that for us. So, yeah, I guess that wasn't a very good Peter Shapiro imitation. He'd probably be pushing you to do something more than you're doing, but maybe Mr. Miller or Chairman Hood will have something more to say on that topic. So, anyway, thank you again. I think this is extremely well done. I do appreciate also the various conditions from DDOT and the ANC are ones that the applicant has agreed to. So it's good so far. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You can hear me? Okay. Okay. I'm on a different device, so I just want to make sure. So thank you, Ms. Stryker and Ms. Wong and the applicants team for your presentation and all the work that you've done with on this project for a while now. There's a lot involved in the project overall. But your work specifically in this case with Office of Planning, DDOT, and the ANCs, and appreciate that you've agreed to the conditions of DDOT, worked that out, and the condition of no amplification on the rooftop bar restaurant that ANC 6C requested. So I appreciate all of that. I concur with Commissioner May's comments about the design, the well design, the good design of both buildings, the residential and the hotel. And I guess I just had a question and clarification on, and I understand. I saw what I don't know if I can do a good Commissioner Shapiro impression either, Commissioner May, but I saw how DOEE, Department of Energy Environment, suggested how you could, even though it's very laudable that there are gold and platinum, they pointed out that that's gold and platinum under the time of the original order, which was several years ago, and that things have been, those standards have been upgraded since then. And they suggested different ways you could even get higher points. But you gave a response, which I think I'm satisfied with, as to why, as to what you're considering, and that you hope to get even more LEED scorecard when it's finally built and goes forward. But I think your response was adequate in terms of, was understandable, sufficient as to why you couldn't do some of the specific suggestions, or whether it wasn't feasible, or if there were other choices that were being made that made more sense in this particular case. So I'm very satisfied with the LEED certification in this case. On the design, half of the residential building has balconies. Is that correct? And on the north side, I think they are full balconies, and on the south side, they're Juliet balconies. Is that correct, Mr. Wang?
That is correct.
And-
I believe there are 5 units on the north side that have real balconies, and then 4 units on the southwest side that are Juliet balcony conditions.
So is it? So it's not half. It's not half of the units have balconies, or is it?
It's 9 per floor, and there
Oh,
are
I see.
nine floors.
Floor.
So
I
yeah,
thought you were talking total. Okay.
it's 9 per floor, 10 to 9 floors. So there are 81 actually out of the 166.
Well, that's great. And why can they only be Juliet on the southern Washington Mall facing south side?
That was a choice of the owner, essentially.
I think that there was, we worked really closely with the Office of Planning on this issue, because we were trying to increase the number of balconies overall in the project. I mean, coming with 50% balconies is not what you typically see in these residential buildings. And when it came to the design on the more glassy side, they were having a difficult time achieving what they wanted on the design on that side. Whereas on the north side, you have the overlay of the precast concrete. And so therefore it was easier to put those into the design. And so as we continue to work with the Office of Planning, we felt that being able to open up those units with the glassiness was the better option. So that was the reason why we came to that decision.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you trying to maximize the balconies and work with Office of Planning on that issue. From all the other cases I've commented on residential projects, that how much I think the future occupants of these units appreciate having private, open outdoor space, particularly that's been emphasized during this pandemic period. So anyway, only, and 50 of the 101, 166 units are affordable. That's per the original order.
That's correct.
And that's very laudable. They are at the 80% median family income level, or does it vary if it's rental or ownership, or they're just 80% pursuant to that previous order?
Yeah, so it is just 80%. As you may or may not remember, this project is not subject to the inclusionary zoning because of its zone at the time. And so therefore there were agreements that were made. All of the units are at 80%, but unlike IZ, they are representative of the market rate units across the board. So for example, I think we have a little over 20% 2 bedrooms. So a little over 20% of our affordable units will be 2 bedrooms. You wouldn't necessarily have to do that under IZ. So there were a variety of considerations, and the condition in the original order, it's condition 22, sets forth all of those details, and we aren't proposing to change any of that.
And certainly the 30% set aside for this residential building is much higher than the inclusionary zoning set aside that did not apply when this case was originally filed. Anyway, so thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that. And thank you for all your work on this. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
I don't necessarily have a whole lot of questions because I think this case has been moving along. We're at a second stage, but there are a lot of things where I see that this commission and the Office of Planning in the city can do better. But I know this has been in the pipeline, so I'm not going to talk about affordable housing, who we building this for. I'm not going to mention about the 8%. I'm not going to mention anything about the roof. But I will opine on it because we're at second stage. So one thing I want to make sure and impress upon this applicant is that the city tries to be predictable. We don't change the rules up in the middle of the game, even though some of the teams that I root for, I wish they would, but they don't. So I think that but I do want to associate myself, Mr. Wong, with Commissioner, associate myself with both my colleagues' comments, but in particular the light materials, and I'm glad that you hear what you said, that and with the outstanding accolades that you were given by Commissioner May, I'm sure that you will take that into consideration. The applicant will take that into consideration and make sure, because it's worse. We've been around long enough to see some of the things that we have approved, and we ride by there with our heads down because they look so dirty. So we want it's a mixture of both, and it's already been said, it's how it's done. We want to make sure that the residents who live there and who have to look at it can look at it with pride. So I appreciate your comments, and let's just make sure that we follow through with that, Ms. Shiker, and to the applicant. So I don't have a whole lot. This is a case that I looked at that I could bring up a lot of things, but again, we've already out the gate here, and in this city, we try to be predictable. I don't have anything else. Any second go rounds? Okay, and I do too like the design, so I'll leave it with that. Let's see, do we have any cross from either 2C or 6C? Michelle? I don't know if 2C is here, but I know Commissioner Eckenweiler is here.
I only see Mr. Eckenweiler.
Okay, so 2C, I will read the report if they come in. If they don't come in, I'll read their report. Mr. Eckenweiler, do you have any cross-examination?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mark Eckenweiler for ANC 6C, no cross.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go to other government reports. It was good to see in the Office of Planning report noted. Now we talked about the DOE and the response and Exhibit 22 from the applicant, which I'm very satisfied with, which has already previously been mentioned. But when they had the form, we had DDOT, DOEE, DC Water, DHCD, and OP's design division were in attendance. So I'm sure a lot of those comments were filtrated, and a lot of those issues that may have come up for the second stage were dealt with there. I was glad to see that was the case, and I'm sure all of them have had some input. All right, let's go to the Office of Planning. And again, Office of Planning, we only need 10 minutes, I don't think, from you all, unless you just have so much to tell us that we have not already said. We will turn it over to Ms. Steingasser.
Yes. Yes, sir, Chairman Hood, Commissioners, there's not a lot more for the Office of Planning to add. That's the extent of the-
Okay, well, is that your report?
We, I'm happy to keep it short. We stand on our record in support of this application and the completion of this project. Many of the benefits that this project provides overall, the connectivity, the recreation of the urban environment, the connection of the east and the west, the plinth that serves as the ground, all of which lead us to be very pleased and happy to recommend approval of this PUD.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Steingasser. I will say in your report, I appreciate the equity lens, but again, as I've stated, it's a lot of stuff that we probably could have had a discussion on. I appreciate the discussion there. We have changed things. It's already been mentioned in some other issues with this project, but we don't want to change. I don't believe in the middle of the game on this project. So I appreciate your analysis of tying in some of the racial equity lens and how we're trying to get to where we need to be through. Even with this project, it was out there long before the city had put that in the comp plan. So thank you all for your indulgence and putting that into the report. Commissioner May, you have any questions of OP?
You know, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned the one area that I did have a question about. Not that I really have a question so much, but I think it actually would be good for our record to have Ms. Steingasser talk a little bit more about the racial equity analysis, since that's something new in the comprehensive plan, and it's not something that was part of the original conception or the planning for this project. But I think evaluating this second stage against that test, I think, is very important. Again, we did read the analysis in the OP report, but I think for for any member of the public who's watching, or for our record generally, I think it's worth it for Ms. Steingasser to just hit the high points of that analysis.
I'm happy to. I want to start by pointing out there that this site has no displacement. That's one of the first questions to consider when we're looking at a PUD or at the development of a parcel. We did recognize the original consistency with the comp plan in place at the time of the stage one, and found it consistent with that. We then looked at this centerpiece as part through the equity lens of the new comprehensive plan, and also found that overall, when evaluated through the equity lens, the proposed second stage PUD provides housing, which has an overall effect on maintaining, keeping the escalation of pricing slower. There's affordable housing, there's economic opportunities through both the construction of what was happening on the site and through the uses that are going to be occupying the buildings. Hotels have a lot of easy entry jobs for people. There's the urban connectivity that the project provides overall, the east-west connections, the plinth, the larger plinth that covers the highway itself, and the environmental benefits that are beneficial for all district residents, both future and current. And of course, the 50 affordable units that are provided through the original LVA on the site. And so overall, we found that when looking through the racial equity lens of the comp plan, the project remained not inconsistent with the comprehensive plan.
Thank you. I appreciate you running through that.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Steingasser, for the Office of Planning report. And
Let me do this. Excuse me, Vice Chair. Let me ask everybody who's not speaking if you can mute so we won't get the background. I'm going on mute.
okay. All I was going to say is thank you, Ms. Steingasser, for your report, your written report, and the dialogue which you had with my fellow commissioners today. I think it was it's all very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you again, Ms. Steingasser. I don't have any further questions. Let's see if, does the applicant, Ms. Shiker, does the applicant have any questions, Office of Planning?
We do not. Thank you, Chairman.
Commissioner Eckenwild, do you have any questions, Office of Planning?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. And again, Michelle, we don't have anyone here yet from ANC's 2C. Okay. All right, so thank you, Ms. Steingasser. Let's go to the reports of the ANC. Mr. Eckenweiler will do 6C, and I guess I will have to do 2C if they're not available, if they're not here. Mr. Eckenweiler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have our report at Exhibit 30 in the record. ANC 6C supports this application subject to one condition described in the letter. Ms. Scheicher has already ably described that in her presentation and indicated the applicant has consented to that condition. So we'll stand on that.
Okay, again, Commissioner Eckenweiler, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come down and let us know where ANC 6C is. We really appreciate that. It does not go unnoticed that you take time to come down, whether pro or con, and give us the reviews of the ANC and all the work that you all do. Any questions of Commissioner Eckenweiler? Commissioner May? Okay, Vice Chair Miller?
Questions. Thank you, Commissioner Eckenweiler.
Okay, Ms. Scheicher, I almost said Commissioner Scheicher. Ms. Scheicher, do you have any questions?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again, Mr. Eckenweiler, Commissioner Eckenweiler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'll do my best with ANC 2C's letter. Basically, they said, I'm just gonna read the last part, and this is from Chairman Michael D. Schenkel. He says, based on the foregoing, ANC 2C strongly supports the application for a second stage PUD for the center block and encourage the commission to approve the project. And that's our Exhibit 24. And again, that's ANC 2C. We've already heard from 6C from Commissioner Eckenweiler.
Did we do the DDOT report?
Well, let me go back to Exhibit 26. Let me go back. Ms. Blondine?
They are here.
Who's from DDOT?
Emma Blondin.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Blondine. I'm sorry, Ms. Blondine. I saw your name there and I put you with the app. I should not do that, but anyway, you may go right ahead, Ms. Blondine. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. Good evening, and thank you for having me. My name is Emma Blondin. I'm with District Department of Transportation. DDOT is supportive of the applicant's proposal. Vehicular access, long-term bicycle parking, loading were all consistent with the first stage approval. The applicant's been coordinating with us on public space elements, including, as they showed, a hotel passenger loading zone, and they'll continue to do so through public space permitting. The applicant has coordinated with us on the transportation impacts and will participate in a transportation management program for the entire first stage PUD area for zoning order 0834, condition number 20, as outlined in their transportation statement, Exhibit 21A. And the transportation management plan includes both a transportation demand management plan and a performance monitoring plan. As you heard in the applicant's presentation, DDOT has come to agreement on the TDM and performance monitoring plan condition from our report. And with that condition included in the final zoning order and continued coordination with DDOT through public space permitting, we have no objection to the approval of this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blondin. How do you pronounce your last name again?
Blondin.
Blondin. Have you been here before?
I have not. This is my my first time with you all. Yeah.
Okay, well, let me welcome you. It sounds like this is going to be an easy one for you, but I always tell the new presenters, don't get used to it. But thank you.
They always give us the easy ones to start, right?
Okay, because DDOT transportation can be rough at times, but you got a good one to get started with. So welcome to the zoning commission.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Commissioner May, you have any questions, Ms. Blondin? Okay, Vice Chair Miller.
No questions. Welcome, Ms. Blondin.
Ms. Scheicher, you have any questions?
I do not. Thank you.
And Commissioner Eckenweiler.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Blondin. Really
Thank you.
appreciate your report. Okay, now where were we at? I think we went through, Michelle, I think we are at persons who are here in support or opposition or undeclared.
There are no witnesses signed up.
No witnesses. Okay, Ms. Scheicher, do you have I don't think you have any rebuttal. Do you have any closing?
Yes, Chairman, members of the commission, thank you. This project has been a long time in the making. back from 2011 to 2021. And we're, as I said, thrilled to be here with the last two buildings. And we would appreciate the commission's deliberation and support for this project at the earliest convenience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'm gonna close the record. This is, I believe this is a one vote case. I think, unless somebody asks for something that I don't recall, I think we're ready to move forward with this tonight, but I see my colleagues here shaking yes. All right, so with that, I will ask one of my colleagues to make a motion, however you wish. Let me go to Commissioner May first.
Yeah,
Commissioner May.
I did have a couple of comments before we get to the motion. One is that I should have also tried to do my Mike Turnbull imitation and repeat his comments from Set Down, which was an appreciation for the signage plan, the way it was laid out. It was, you know, appropriate and modest and looks good. So I neglected to mention that before when I was doing my commissioner impressions. Anyway, that's one comment. The other one is that I think there is a slight issue with the condition regarding the requested phasing. And we have a suggestion for that. Mr. Chairman, you're aware of this from the Office of Zoning's legal division. They're suggesting we add a sentence that says the approval shall expire if the applicant does not apply for a C of O for the hotel building within 6 years of the effective date of this order. So that allows 2 years to get to the permit application, 3 years to start construction, and then 3 more years to get to the C of O, which theoretically should be plenty of time. The reason this is important is that if we never get to the C of O, the next phase could string on forever. So Mr. Riddick popped in. Maybe, do you want to add anything to that?
No, you summarized it perfectly. And Ms. Scheicher, I think this is an issue that you and I could iron out post decision if you have some questions or comments or issues with that. The purpose of it being, as Mr. May said, that we don't create a situation where you get a building permit for the first phase, but then for whatever reason, you don't get to a certificate of occupancy, and then we have an indefinite approval, which is something that has happened before and we want to avoid. And I know that that's certainly not your intention, and it's very unlikely that would happen, but crazy things happen sometimes. And so that's why we have to think about that stuff now. That's the reason I made that suggestion. If for some reason you think 6 years is too soon, possibly we could talk about a longer period, so long as there is a definite period at which point the PUD would expire if you don't get a certificate of occupancy for the first. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think 6 years is a reasonable period of time, but I don't think it's a problem if it's, you know, if it's more than that, so long as it's not like 16 years, right? It's got to be something that's, you know, realistic from your perspective. So, yeah, I think that was the only outstanding issue that I was aware of. So otherwise, Mr. Chairman, if you want, I would make a motion for.
Before you make the motion, I do have an issue with much longer than 6 years. But I will leave it up to Mr. Redding and Ms. Scheicher, because we don't want it for 15 years like that.
Right.
So, okay, I just want to make sure the commission does not want that. So yeah.
Right. You know, 6 months, maybe. I mean, 6 years. 6 years and 6 months, something like that.
That's no problem. Not 6 years.
A little bit more time if you need it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I think we got everything that. I think you're ready to make the motion. So good. I'll let you do that.
All right. I'll make the motion that the zoning commission take final action to approve Capital Crossing 3 LLC and Capital Crossing 4 LLC second stage PUD at squares 566, lots 861 and 862, center block. And would ask for a second.
Second that, and I know that the motion includes the DDOT conditions that we've discussed tonight and the 6C condition on application that we discussed tonight, and the phasing condition that you brought up that with our council that will be worked out with the applicant as we've discussed.
You're absolutely correct. That was all folded in there.
I knew it was. Thank you.
Okay,
Second it.
okay, great. It's been moved and properly second with all of the things that have been discussed. Any further discussion? Not hearing. Michelle, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner May,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Hood.
Yes.
The vote is 3-0 to 2 to approve final action zoning commission case number 08-34L. Commissioner Shapiro not present, not voting, and the AOC representative not present, not voting. Thank you. If we could get a draft order by within 2 weeks, that would be great.
Yes, thank you. We will do that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Hey,
you.
We got about 6 more hours. Remember the other night?
We could
All right,
drag it on.
No, that's okay. So I want to thank everyone for their participation tonight and all the work that's been done in this case. The zoning commission will be meeting again on October the 25th. And that case is 16-20A 3443 Eads LLC, and we'll be meeting at 4 p.m. on these same platforms. Anybody have anything else? Michelle, and anything else? Okay.
That's
All right.
it.
Thank everyone for their participation tonight, and you all have a great weekend. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.